Ethan was in love with his older sister's friend. Clara Lou was 6 years older than him, so he kept his crush carefully hidden. Until one night, under dim lights, he couldn't resist stealing a kiss while she was drunk. He'd meant to run, but he collided with her suddenly open eyes. She'd lifted her eyelids languidly. "Want big sis to teach you how to kiss? Too bad. I'm not interested in little boys." But he'd summoned his courage. "So you think I'm too young? It's okay, I'll grow up." She'd paused, then smiled. "All right then. When you turn 22, if you still like me, I'll think about it." His heart had hammered. From then on, he'd stuck by her side, day after day, until he was 22. He'd eagerly sought her out to make good on her promise, only to hear a baby's cry from outside a private room at a club. He froze for a few seconds, then peered in. Clara was holding a wailing infant, trying to soothe it. A circle of friends around them covered their ears, looking tormented. "Clara, you're ruthless. To reject that Ethan one, you actually found a baby to trick him into thinking you're a mom?" Ethan's mind went blank. What else could I do? Clara's voice had that familiar soft lilt. "He's 22 today, here to collect on that old promise." "You dislike him that much? He's actually pretty great, handsome, obedient, totally devoted to you. It's not about liking him or not." Clara's voice suddenly dropped. "You all know who I've always had my heart set on." The room went quiet for a moment, then erupted in knowing laughter. "Jason Shun, no wonder. I tell you, you just overthink things. With your looks, who wouldn't be crazy about you? You think Jason wouldn't agree? You're just too timid. All these years, I never knew how to say it. Afraid I'd lose him even as a friend." Ethan's persistence. "Well, it's an opportunity." Clara's voice held a smile. "I told Jason that Ethan's been pestering me, and I don't know how to get rid of him. I asked him to be my fake boyfriend for a while. Then we'd show up with this borrowed baby in front of Ethan, and even stage a wedding. That way, Ethan will give up, and Jason and I can get closer. After the fake wedding, I'll confess to Jason on the spot." Hearing Clara's two birds, one stone plan, everyone marveled, some even slamming the table in approval. Amidst the laughter, no one noticed Ethan standing outside. The cake box slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. He no longer had the courage to push open the door. Numbly, he turned and fled. Rain poured heavily outside the club. Ethan ran, letting the downpour ruin his carefully styled hair. So, Clara had never liked him. It had all been his own wishful thinking. He'd fallen for her at first sight when he was 14. School had just ended, and his sister hadn't come to pick him up. A few punks had cornered him in an alley. It was Clara who'd passed by, taught those thugs a lesson, and saved him. He'd cried until his eyes were swollen. Clara had comforted him gently, handed him 2 chocolate bars, and teased with a smile, "Little crybaby, you've got snot bubbles coming out. Come on, I'll take you home." That day, Ethan had tasted the sweetest chocolate of his life, and for the first time, he'd fallen for someone. Because of his sister, Olivia one, he saw Clara almost every day. His youthful infatuation grew like wild summer vines. He learned to make packed lunches, preparing over a dozen for Olivia to take to school, just so Clara might eat his food. He found ways to learn her preferences, meticulously preparing gifts, finding any excuse during holidays to give them to her. For her, he'd given up the chance to study abroad, staying in New York City, just to wait until he was 22. He'd waited 8 years, thinking he could finally be with her. But only today did Ethan learn that his affection to Clara was nothing but a burden. He didn't know how long he ran before he finally calmed down. Trembling, he pulled out his phone and dialed his sister, Olivia. "Liv," his voice choked, "I've thought it over. I'm willing to go study abroad. And that girl you mentioned last time, I'm willing to meet her." For years, everyone in their circle knew Ethan was chasing Clara. Every time Olivia saw him so desperately pursuing her, she looked like she wanted to say something but held back. Then she'd subtly try to introduce him to other girls, hoping he'd give up on Clara. This girl abroad was the 18th one she'd suggested. Olivia said this girl was beautiful and smart, no less than Clara, and since he was studying design, a few years of advanced study abroad would be perfect. Thinking back, Olivia probably knew all along who Clara's heart belonged to and was just trying to help him cut his losses. The other end of the line was silent for a few seconds. You know everything." Ethan closed his eyes, rain mixing with tears on his cheeks. "Does she really like Jason Shun that much?" "Yes." "Then I wish her all the best." He wiped his face. "And I'll do as she wishes. I won't like her anymore." Back home, Ethan mechanically opened his suitcase and started packing. His phone vibrated, the screen lighting up. "Clara Lou, why didn't you come?" He stared at the message for a long time, until a second one popped up. "Clara Lou, Ethan, I have a boyfriend. We even have a baby, and we're getting married soon. Stop liking me. Then, she sent 2 photos. One was of a baby's tiny foot, the other an exquisite wedding invitation. Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, then replied with 2 words. Okay. After sending it, he tossed the phone onto the bed and pulled an old metal box from the depths of a drawer. Inside were movie ticket stubs, amusement park passes, her old test papers he'd secretly kept, the basketball jersey she'd given him. All memories related to Clara from the past 8 years. He picked up the box, walked out, and without hesitation, dumped its contents into the trash. Meanwhile, in the private room at the high-end club, Clara Lou stared at her phone, frowning. She'd expected him to be angry, to confront her, but she hadn't anticipated such a calm reaction. What did he say? A friend leaned over, then widened her eyes. Just okay? Something's not right. Another friend mused, stroking his chin. Knowing how crazy Ethan is about you, he shouldn't be this calm. The group was puzzled, but soon, someone had a thought and a look of realization dawned. Holy crap. Could he have come by earlier and overheard our conversation at the door? He already knows the baby is fake, the wedding is fake, so he's just pretending to be unfazed. Hearing their analysis, Clara's frown deepened. Given Ethan's past behavior, after waiting so many years, finding out she liked someone else, and had a child, should have made him cause a huge scene. His calmness had to mean he knew the truth and was playing hard to get, pulling a strategic retreat. Several friends immediately agreed with this theory, offering advice. In that case, Clara, just keep up the act with Jason. This is a rare chance to get closer to him. Ethan definitely hasn't given up yet. Once you two are really together, he'll have no choice but to quit. Exactly, Ethan's attitude doesn't matter. What's important is that you strike while the iron is hot and win over your man. Once it's a done deal, all problems will be solved. As the group chatted excitedly, Olivia, when pushed, opened the door, her gaze falling directly on Clara. Clara, come out. I need to talk to you about Ethan. He went crying to his sister. Clara lazily lifted her eyes, about to speak, when her phone rang. Clara, are you free now? Weren't you saying you needed to put on a show for your friend's little brother? I thought we could pick out some baby stuff together, make it look more convincing. Hearing Jason Shun's gentle voice, Clara agreed without a second thought. She immediately stood up to leave, tossing a single sentence to Olivia. Next time, I'm busy today. Just a few minutes. Seeing her hurry off, Olivia tried to stop her, but was blocked by a few friends. Forget it, Olivia. Clara's rushing off to meet the guy she likes. Don't hold her back. Yeah, you know she likes Jason. She's waited so many years for a chance to confess. You should stop trying to set your brother up with her in the future. Hearing their dissuasions, Olivia frowned. That's not what I meant. She had wanted to tell Clara that her brother had come to his senses, planned to study abroad, and wouldn't bother her anymore. After a night's rest, Ethan went out and applied for his visa. The staff said it would take 2 weeks at the earliest for approval. After resting at home for a couple of days, his sister's birthday arrived. Olivia loved a lively party and threw one every year. He changed his clothes and went to the venue. The main hall was crowded with guests, buzzing with excitement. Her group of friends was also there. Ethan didn't want to run into them and deliberately avoided them. Soon enough, Clara appeared, holding Jason's arm with one hand and a baby carrier in the other. Seeing her looking so triumphant, everyone was envious, and murmurs spread. Who would have thought Clara would be the first to settle down? I heard she's like Jason for over a decade. Now she has a husband and child. Truly a winner in life. It's just too bad for that Ethan kid who likes her. His heart must be broken, ha ha. Hearing these comments, Ethan remained expressionless. A moment later, Clara brought Jason over to him, casually calling out, Ethan, I haven't introduced you yet. This is my husband, and this is my child. Instantly, all eyes in the room focused on them. Ethan's expression didn't change. He managed to smile. Nice to meet you, Jason. Jason, truly the good actor she'd enlisted, extended a hand with a smile. Ethan, right? Clara's mentioned you several times. You're young. Ethan, you don't understand love. Now that your sister Clara and I have a child, you can let go of those feelings. We're planning our wedding for next month. You have to come. Ethan lowered his gaze. I understand, Jason. I crossed a line before. From now on, I'll know my place. I wish you both happiness. Hearing him say this, the surrounding friends started to jeer. What things are you talking about? You mean calling Clara in the middle of the night, asking her to pick you up? Or getting wasted and publicly declaring you'd marry no one but her? Or going to the Lou estate and asking the staff about her preferences? Ethan, your sister Clara is a taken woman now. If you keep pestering her, you'll only embarrass yourself and the Wynn family. You need to be more sensible. Don't let your actions ruin the friendship between your sister and Clara. Each taunt was like salt rubbed into Ethan's wounded heart. He instinctively looked at Clara. She stood a few feet away, her expression indifferent. For a fleeting moment, he felt she had changed, no longer the Clara he remembered who would always look out for him. But on reflection, she'd always treated other pursuers with this same coldness, never giving them any hope. It seemed her past tolerance of his pursuit was really just out of consideration for his sister, not wanting to cause a scene. Now that she was with the man she loved, she was drawing a clear line. After all, in her heart, Jason was more important than anyone else, wasn't he? Thinking this, Ethan was engulfed by a deep bitterness. He merely nodded and turned to leave. The birthday party was just beginning. Olivia, who had arrived late, was busy mingling with guests and hadn't noticed her brother. Clara, meanwhile, was eagerly and openly introducing Jason as her husband to everyone. She would feed him tasty snacks, gently adjust his sleeves, and massage his sore shoulders. Everyone praised her as a devoted wife, praised Jason for being lucky enough to marry her, saying they were a match made in heaven. Ethan watched from afar, a bitter taste in his mouth, forcing himself to look away. He sat alone in a corner until Jason approached him with a glass of wine, breaking the silence. "It's your sister's birthday, and you're sitting here not saying a word. Are you angry?" Ethan hadn't expected him to come over and instinctively shifted away. "I'm not angry, Jason. My feelings for Clara, I've completely let them go." Jason paused, his expression turning complicated. "But Clara told me you chased her for years, dead set on being with her. That was before. After I found out she'd loved you for many years, I gave up. I wish you both happiness." With that, Ethan stood up to leave, but Jason grabbed his hand. "You said Clara has loved me for many years? Where did you hear that? Did she admit it herself?" Ethan wasn't in the mood to continue the conversation. "Everyone says so. Go ask her." "I don't know." But Jason wouldn't let him go, insisting on getting a clear answer. As they struggled, the chandelier overhead suddenly loosened and came crashing down. Looking up at the rapidly descending shadow, Ethan's mind went blank. Before he could react, Clara, who happened to be approaching, her face changing espresso, lunged forward and pulled Jason away. The heavy light fixture, weighing dozens of pounds, slammed onto Ethan. He collapsed to the ground with a sickening thud. Blood gushed out. An excruciating pain, as if all his limbs were breaking, tore through him. He lay in a pool of blood, trembling and convulsing uncontrollably, hearing terrified screams around him. His vision blurred. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Jason holding Clara, murmuring comforting words to her. He didn't know how much time had passed when he groggily awoke to see Olivia, her eyes red, keeping vigil by his hospital bed. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. It was my fault for not protecting you. That's why you got hurt so badly." Ethan shook his head, his voice weak and hoarse. "It's not your fault, Liv. It happened so suddenly. You were too far away to save me." Hearing her brother's words, Olivia remembered what happened before the accident, feeling even more guilty. "I was too far, but Clara was so close to you, yet she wouldn't save you. If Jason hadn't been talking to you, you could have avoided this disaster." Ethan shook his head, comforting her gently. "Liv, she and a man she loves were in danger at the same time. She instinctively saved the person she cares about most. There's nothing wrong with that. I was delusional before, but after this, I've truly let go." "Good. As long as you can let go, whatever you decide, I'll support you." Olivia squeezed his hand, nodding firmly. Ethan managed a faint smile, slowly calming himself. His condition stabilized, and Olivia, who hadn't rested for days, finally felt relieved enough to go get some sleep. The room fell quiet again. Ethan took out his phone and booked a flight departing in 10 days. The airline called to confirm the order. He listened carefully, not noticing the footsteps at the door. "Yes, that's right. The earliest flight to the U.S. on the 19th, first class." "What first class?" Seeing Clara suddenly appear at the door, Ethan jumped. "Nothing." Though he denied it, Clara's intuition told her something was off. She stared at him. "Where did you learn to lie? Where are you planning to go with that plane ticket?" Faced with her questioning, Ethan remained silent for a few seconds, then spoke, his voice raspy. "You're about to get married. Wherever I go, it has nothing to do with you, right?" Clara had been suspicious, but hearing him say this, she felt it was just another one of his tricks. Her face resumed its cold indifference. "It has nothing to do with me. Jason was worried about you and asked me to check on you." "I'm fine, Clara. Please leave." His uncharacteristically distant attitude surprised Clara. She was about to speak when a nurse knocked and entered, informing him it was time for a follow-up examination. Ethan's leg was injured. He struggled to get out of bed alone and nearly fell. Clara, quick-witted, steadied him. He muttered a low thanks and tried to leave alone, pushing his wheelchair. Seeing him covered in wounds and struggling to move, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity and took over pushing the wheelchair. "Where's the examination room? I'll take you." "No need, I can manage." Ethan refused, but Clara became even more insistent, pushing him out of the room. Just as she wheeled him downstairs, they ran headlong into Jason's shun. The moment she saw him, Clara immediately let go of the wheelchair and rushed towards him. It was a downward slope. The wheelchair, unbraked, sped rapidly downhill. Just as he was about to crash into a flower bed, Ethan's heart leaped. He braced himself and rolled out of the wheelchair. He fell to the ground, scraping his hands and knees, drawing blood. He let out a muffled groan of pain, clutching his torn wounds, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Jason was also a bit frightened and hurried forward to check on him. The wheelchair was mangled from the impact. He looked at Ethan's injuries and tugged Clara's hand. "Clara, Ethan's hurt and the wheelchair's broken. Help him get bandaged up." At his words, Clara's expression underwent a subtle change. She glanced at Ethan, who was clearly in pain. Then her gaze shifted to Jason, and she shook her head in refusal. Her rejection pierced Ethan's heart. He clenched his fists so tightly his palms were stained with blood. Jason couldn't persuade her, so he told her to get a new wheelchair. This time, Clara agreed. After watching her back disappear, Jason handed Ethan a handkerchief. "Clara's always like this, only listens to me. Don't hold it against her. I'm partly responsible for you getting hurt at the hotel that day, but the baby's had a fever these past 2 days, so I couldn't get away. I asked her to come see you on my behalf. I didn't expect another accident. Though unintentional, it's still our fault. I'm truly sorry." Ethan didn't know what act Jason was putting on today. He gritted his teeth against the pain and stood up by himself. "Jason, I've already said it. I won't like Clara anymore. Whether you two are acting or really getting married, I don't care." With that, he dragged his weak body, stumbling, trying to leave. But Jason wouldn't let him go, stepping forward to follow. "So you knew Clara and I were acting." Halfway through his sentence, a loud splash startled Ethan, making him turn his head. Seeing Jason, who had accidentally fallen into the pond, struggling and calling for help, he hesitated for a few seconds, then extended a hand. Clara, who had just returned, saw this scene, immediately jumped into the pond, and pulled Jason out. Seeing his pale, weak, coughing state, she looked at Ethan, her eyes blazing with anger. "I was only gone for a few minutes, and you deliberately pushed Jason into the water?" Ethan never imagined Clara would blame him for this. Seeing her furious expression, he was about to explain, but Clara gave him no chance. She helped Jason up, then forcefully pushed Ethan into the pond. "I tolerated your pestering before, but Jason is my bottom line. If you dare hurt him again, don't blame me for not showing any mercy." Her chilling tone, mixed with the icy pond water, flooded Ethan's ears. The blood from his wounds spread in the water, creating a crimson stain. He couldn't swim. He thrashed with all his might, but couldn't reach the edge. The oxygen in his chest gradually depleted. His face turned purple, and his heartbeat slowed. Waves of dizziness washed over him, pulling his consciousness into an endless darkness. When he opened his eyes again, Ethan heard a fierce argument outside the door. "Ethan is my brother, and you watch him grow up. How could he possibly push someone into the water? You deliberately retaliated and nearly drowned him. Shouldn't you apologize?" "You want me to apologize? Fine. Then first, make him apologize to Jason. If he hadn't been so jealous and tried to harm Jason first, would I have lashed out for no reason? You care about your brother, and I care about my husband. If anything happened to Jason, Ethan could die 100 times and still not atone for it." Hearing Clara's furious outburst, Ethan felt a chill run through him, as if he'd been plunged into an ice cellar. He had been rejected by her countless times before, but never had he felt such despair. He thought that even if they couldn't be lovers, given their many years of acquaintance, there would still be some tiny, insignificant bond between them. It turned out that whenever her beloved was involved, he was nothing. The two outside didn't know he was awake and continued to argue. "You have no evidence, yet you blame Ethan for everything, not even giving him a chance to explain? Just because he liked you for many years, you can hurt him with impunity? He pestered me for so many years. I only showed him some decency because of you. Haven't I been considerate enough all these years to avoid embarrassing him? You resent me for hurting his feelings, but have you ever thought about how long I've put up with it?" The anger simmering in Olivia's heart finally boiled over. She could no longer bear it and slapped Clara across the face. Clara didn't back down, and they started fighting. Hearing the commotion, Ethan's heart jolted. He forced himself up and went out to break them up. Seeing their bruised faces, he rushed between them. Tears he'd held back for so long finally burst forth. He cried hysterically, "Stop fighting. Please stop. Liv, can we go back? Please." Seeing her brother's tears, Olivia's rationality finally returned. Her nose tingled. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let go. She took Ethan's hand and dejectedly walked back into the hospital room. The moment the door closed, they heard Clara's cold voice. "Don't think playing pitiful will make me forgive you. I'm warning you one last time. Stay away from Jason." Olivia's suppressed anger threatened to flare up again, but Ethan held her tightly, his voice full of pleading. "Let go, Liv, please. I'm leaving soon. I won't appear in Clara's world anymore. You don't need to fall out with her or your friends because of me." The more he tried to dissuade her, the more Olivia's heart ached for him. The siblings looked at each other wordlessly. After a long silence in the room, she broke the quiet with a heavy voice. "Ethan, it's my fault. Clara only has Jason in her heart. For him, she'd even abandon her friends. I should have told you the truth the first time I realized you liked her. Then you wouldn't have fallen so deep." Ethan gently shook his head, his eyes filled with weariness and helplessness. "I know you had your difficulties. I never blamed you. Besides, things have come to this point. Regrets are useless. I'm only 22, still so young. I can start over." Seeing his forced smile, Olivia stroked his head. "Yes, our Ethan will have a brand new life. You'll definitely meet someone better." For the next few days, Ethan recuperated in the hospital. During this time, he would occasionally hear gossip from the nurses doing their rounds. "I heard the person who booked the entire VIP floor upstairs is the CEO of Lou Corporation. No wonder she's so extravagant. The one staying in the room is her fiancé, right? No wonder she's by his bedside constantly, bringing water and feeding him porridge. It seems like she got pregnant before marriage, already has a child, and they're getting married in a few days. I heard the wedding itself cost hundreds of millions. To go to such lengths to prepare a globally televised wedding of the century, really giving the groom face. It seems this CEO Lou is truly head over heels in love." Hearing their envious voices, Ethan remembered the plan he'd overheard outside the club and closed his eyes. Clara was making this wedding so grand and lavish. She must be completely confident that Jason would accept her proposal. She had waited so many years, racked her brains to stage this drama, and finally, her wish was coming true. And that annoying little kid she despised would disappear forever after this wedding, never to be seen again. It really was a joyful occasion, killing two birds with one stone, truly worth a grand celebration. As Ethan was lost in thought, his phone rang a few times. He came back to his senses, saw the name on the screen, paused for a few seconds, then answered. "Ethan, I heard you were hospitalized. Are you feeling better lately?" It was a friend of Olivia's calling, beating around the bush for a while. Ethan could tell something was off before she finally, hesitantly, stated her purpose. "I heard Olivia and Clara had a fight. Their relationship is a bit strained now. What was it about this time? A few of us friends tried to mediate, but it didn't work. Do you know?" He remained silent for a long time before briefly explaining the situation. After listening, the friend sighed. Friends for so many years, falling out over such a small misunderstanding. It's laughable. "Ethan, could you do us a favor? We're organizing a get-together tonight. Bring your sister. Whatever misunderstanding there is, everyone can clear it up on the spot." Ethan knew that besides family, his sister valued this group of friends the most. He didn't want her to become estranged from them because of him, so he agreed to her request. After completing his discharge procedures, Ethan, under the pretext of a dinner gathering with her girlfriends, brought Olivia along. The moment they entered the private room and saw Clara and Jason sitting in the middle, her expression darkened, and she turned to leave. Ethan used all his strength to hold her back, persuading her for a bit before she reluctantly sat down. The group of friends constantly watched their expressions, occasionally cracking jokes to lighten the mood. Seizing the opportunity, Jason proactively walked over to Olivia, his tone full of apology. "Olivia, my fall at the hospital that day was just an accident. Clara was just too worried about me, so she did those things in anger. If you two friends continue this Cold War over such a small matter, both Ethan and I will feel uneasy." Someone had offered an olive branch, and Olivia's expression softened considerably, though her tone remained cold. "As long as she apologizes to Ethan, I won't pursue this matter further." Clara shot her a cold glance, her attitude equally unyielding. "As long as he apologizes to Jason, I'll apologize to him." Just as the two were about to clash again, several friends quickly stepped in to mediate. "Hey, we've all known each other for so many years. Why be so petty? I'll make the decision. You both have a drink, and we'll consider this matter over, okay?" Jason was the first to raise his glass. Seeing this, Clara frowned, quickly stood up, took his glass, and downed it in one gulp. Then, she placed the empty glass in front of Olivia. Only then did Olivia follow suit and take a drink, and the atmosphere in the room finally eased. Clara, you listened to Jason so well. Does this mean if we want to ask you out for drinks in the future, we'll have to ask for his permission first? Faced with their teasing, Jason blushed slightly and inadvertently nudged Clara. A smile finally appeared on her face as she spoke leisurely. Jason can't drink much. Shouldn't I, as his wife, step up? After we're married, it's only natural for me to report to Jason wherever I go and whatever I do. What's there to be surprised about? Hearing this from her, everyone in the room covered their mouths and giggled. Jason really has a way with her, turning our ice princess of a New York scene, who never cared for men, into someone so devoted. They're so lovey-dovey. Ethan sat aside, quietly listening to their banter, and found that it didn't hurt as much as before. Meeting Olivia's concerned gaze, he smiled faintly, signaling he was fine. Soon, everyone was clamoring to play games. Jason, not knowing how to play, lost more than a dozen rounds in a row. Faced with the entire table of drinks he was supposed to down as a penalty, Clara showed no impatience, smiling as she drank them all for him. Watching her drink glass after glass, tirelessly, Ethan silently stood up and went to the restroom. After washing his hands, he was about to return to the private room when he heard a familiar voice from the hallway. Jason, do you know? The first time I saw you, I fell in love at first sight. But you were always so cold to me. I thought you only saw me as a friend, so I didn't dare confess, only staying by your side. Year after year. Turns out, loving someone really makes you insecure. Clara was drunk, leaning on Jason's shoulder. He supported her, his eyes full of tenderness. So, you came up with this plan, deliberately using Ethan as a front, to make me your boyfriend? You like me that much? Yes, I like you. I like you very much. My phone is full of your pictures. My notes app has all your likes and dislikes. I've had your WhatsApp chat pinned for over a decade. Every time you message me, I get so happy I can't sleep all night. I've also written you so many love letters. Can I show them to you someday? Having known Clara for 8 years, this was the first time Ethan had seen her display such a look of budding love. He silently listened to her drunken confession, vaguely recalling the times he had confessed his feelings to her. She would stare at him, her eyes clear, showing no hint of emotion. Back then, he thought that if he just persisted, he would one day warm her heart. But now he understood. Even if he waited another 8 years, 18 years, 28 years, he would never get his wish. A butterfly cannot cross the vast ocean. So how could he move a woman who loved another man? Ethan didn't linger. He returned to the private room alone. Olivia knew he wasn't used to such occasions, so after saying goodbye to everyone, she left with him. The siblings went downstairs and were about to hail a cab home when they suddenly saw a commotion ahead. Jason and Clara were surrounded by a few drunkards, and the two groups were arguing. He didn't know what was said, but Clara got furious, grabbed a beer bottle from a table, and smashed it over one of the drunkards' heads. The few thugs were instantly enraged and swarmed them. In an instant, the entire lobby descended into chaos. Curses and screams were incessant. Bottles and chairs flew everywhere. Seeing the chaotic scene, Olivia's face darkened. She uttered a single sentence and rushed forward. Ethan, go upstairs and get help. Ethan's heart pounded with fear. He quickly turned back to call for assistance. By the time he returned with a group of people, he saw one of the thugs, head bleeding profusely, pick up several bottles and hurl them at Jason, who was cowering in a corner. His heart leaped into his throat. His eyes widened as he saw Clara unhesitatingly rush forward. She threw herself onto Jason, shielding him with her own body from all the attacks. Blood spurted out like a fountain, staining her white blouse red. Witnessing this firsthand, Ethan froze on the spot, his breath catching. He watched her, battered and bruised, still standing protectively in front of Jason, not retreating an inch. His heart clenched violently. Only at this moment did he finally believe that Clara's love for Jason had indeed reached the point where she was willing to sacrifice her life for him. He was dazed for a long time. When he came to, he found himself in the hospital. The light above the operating room had just gone out. A doctor emerged, wiping sweat from his brow, his voice filled with relief. The surgery was successful. By the way, is Jason the patient's husband? She kept muttering his name while unconscious. We recommend this gentleman stay with her in the ICU. Talk to her often to keep her attention. She'll wake up faster. Hearing this news, the group of friends urged Jason to hurry to the ICU to be with her. After watching him leave, Ethan tugged Olivia's sleeve. Liv, let's go home. Olivia paused for a few seconds, then nodded and left with him. Back home, Ethan took out his suitcase and began packing his things. Watching him bustle about, Olivia felt uneasy and kept helping him, observing his state. Ethan knew what she was worried about. His face was calm. Liv, stop staring at me. I'm fine. I'm leaving in a couple of days. We won't see each other for a long time. I'll miss you. You have to visit me often, okay? Olivia's heart ached. She ruffled his hair, as she usually did. Of course, I'll visit you whenever I have time. And I need to see how you're getting along with that friend of mine. For the next few days, Ethan stayed home, busy preparing to go abroad, seeing no one. The day before he left, Olivia got drunk at Clara's bachelorette party. He received a call and went out to pick his sister up. He soon arrived at the Liu family's mansion and rang the doorbell. A moment later, the housekeeper opened the door and led him to find Olivia. In the past, to see Clara often, Ethan would tag along with his sister whenever he had the chance, so he knew his way around. But having not been here for a month, stepping into the mansion again, he felt a sense of unfamiliarity. The villa was festooned with lights and decorations, with double happiness symbols pasted everywhere, creating a festive atmosphere. The few towering pine trees in the courtyard were gone, replaced by large rose beds. The decor had also been completely revamped. The rooms were filled with wedding supplies and countless cute dolls and ornaments. The housekeeper recognized Ethan. As they walked, she chuckled and explained, "Young Master One, Miss Liu has been incredibly busy preparing for the wedding. You haven't been over in so long. You almost don't recognize the place, do you? Didn't you say before that those pine trees were very lush and you liked them? Unfortunately, Mr. Shen didn't like them much, so Miss Liu had them cut down. A bit of a pity, isn't it? The furniture and style in the rooms have also been changed to Mr. Shen's preferred color scheme. Doesn't it look much better? Miss Liu also said that from now on, everything in the house will be according to Mr. Shen's wishes. I really didn't expect Miss Liu to change so much after getting married. It seems she really likes Mr. Shen, doesn't she?" Ethan listened quietly, his voice light. "Yes, she likes him very much. Everyone can see that." They passed through a long corridor to the lounge, which was incredibly noisy. Ethan didn't want to go in, so he called his sister to let her know he'd arrived. Soon, the room door opened. Clara emerged, supporting a very drunk Olivia. Seeing Ethan, her expression froze for an instant. Ethan's face was calm as water as he politely greeted her. Olivia rubbed her bleary eyes and waved at Clara, her voice thick with drunkenness. Tomorrow, your wedding. I won't be there. I have to go see someone off." Halfway through her sentence, she passed out. Clara frowned. "What does your sister have to do tomorrow? She's not even coming to my wedding." Ethan knew Olivia meant to see him off at the airport, but he didn't want Clara to know he was leaving. He shook his head, feigning ignorance. Maybe she's busy with something, or maybe she's just drunk talking. With that, he supported his sister and was about to leave, but after a few steps, he was called back. "What about you? Will you come to the wedding tomorrow?" Ethan's steps faltered, his gaze hardening slightly, but his tone was resigned. "My sister doesn't want me to go, and you probably don't want to see me either, right? So I won't go. I'll just wish you a happy marriage and a long life together here. I might not have another chance to offer my blessings in the future." Hearing his words, Clara's heart leaped. Might not have another chance to offer blessings in the future? What does that mean? She couldn't understand it. Instinctively, she wanted to call him back and ask, but Jason's call came through. She hesitated for a few seconds, then chose to answer the phone. "Clara, don't drink too much today, or if you're late tomorrow." Okay, don't worry." Hearing her gentle, coaxing tone, Ethan smiled silently and took Olivia home. He slept dreamlessly. When he woke up, it was already 8 o'clock. After breakfast, his sister drove him to the airport. The plane was scheduled to take off at 11. Seeing there was still time, he specifically reminded Olivia, "Liv, you should go to the wedding now. They must be waiting for you. I'll call you to let you know I've arrived safely." Olivia looked at her watch, sighed, and nodded in agreement. After seeing her off, Ethan walked into the boarding gate alone and got on the plane. Just before takeoff, as he was about to turn off his phone, Clara's call suddenly came through. He froze for a moment, then pressed hang up. He also blocked all her contact methods. Before the plane took off, he took one last look at the city he had lived in for over 20 years. Then he closed his eyes, with no lingering attachments. When Olivia arrived at the wedding venue, she was surprised to find the ceremony hadn't started yet. She quickly found a seat. Crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant glow, and the hall was packed with guests. Clara Liu and Jason Shun, amidst applause, were filling a champagne tower, but Clara's gaze kept drifting unconsciously towards the entrance. Ethan hadn't come. When the MC urged for the third time that the ceremony was about to begin, Jason put his arm around her shoulder and whispered, "What's wrong?" Clara shook her head. She turned slightly, took out her phone, and dialed Ethan's number, but only a mechanical voice responded. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently busy. Please try again later." She frowned, her fingertips unconsciously tracing the gold-embossed name on the invitation. Ethan won. His words from that night seemed to echo in her ears. I might not have another chance to offer my blessings in the future. Not only were his words so final, but he wouldn't even offer a perfunctory blessing. Her gaze swept across the room, and she saw Olivia. Clara instinctively took a step, wanting to ask why Ethan hadn't come. Suddenly, she glanced down and saw an intimate photo clearly displayed on Jason's phone. In the picture, Jason was hugging a girl intimately from behind, his expression unusually soft. But the mirror selfie perfectly obscured the girl's face. She didn't know who it was, but Clara knew it definitely wasn't her. Jason was currently chatting with someone else, and hadn't noticed the photo was visible. Clara's hands and feet turned icy cold. Countless suspicions arose in her mind. While Jason wasn't looking, she quickly tapped the phone screen. The photo disappeared, revealing a messaging app interface. The contact was labeled "My Sweetheart." A message Jason had just sent was glaringly visible. "Baby, everything is going according to plan. Soon, everything of Clara's will be ours. Remember, you're my only bride." The woman on the other end replied, "Of course I believe you, honey. Once I get my hands on the Liu family assets, I'll definitely marry you. Making you act with Clara Liu, you've really suffered." Before she could read all the messages, Jason's phone screen suddenly went black. Clara looked up and met a pair of panicked eyes. The plan was exposed. Jason panicked. He thought his scheme was flawless, never expecting such a huge slip-up. He wanted to explain, but words failed him. "Clara, I feel a little dizzy." No sooner had he spoken than he crumpled to the floor. Attending doctors rushed through the crowd to check Jason's condition. When Jason woke up, his vision was still blurry. "You're awake." The voice beside him sent a chill down his spine, like being plunged into an ice cellar. Clara stood by the window, silhouetted against the light, her expression unreadable. Jason turned his head to look at her, his hand gripping the blanket tightly. His palm was already slick with cold sweat. "Clara, what happened to me?" Clara ignored his question. "I've already notified them to cancel the wedding." Clara slowly walked to the bedside and sat down, then picked up an orange and began to peel it. The calmer she appeared, the more panicked Jason became. His phone was gone. He didn't know how long he'd been unconscious, nor what Clara had found out, or how much. Now, hearing the wedding was canceled, he forced a smile. "Why was it canceled?" "Clara, listen to my explanation." "Who is that woman?" "What?" Jason's smile froze on his face. Clara, whether accidentally or intentionally, squeezed the orange peel, and its juice squirted into Jason's eyes. He jerked his head away. The next second, his chin was yanked back forcefully. "I asked you, who is that woman?" Their eyes met, both pairs red-rimmed. One with panic, the other with fury. "What woman? I don't understand what you're talking about." Seeing Jason still trying to deny it, Clara's anger surged. Her grip on his chin tightened, her knuckles turning white. "Are you playing dumb? Or do you really think I'm that easy to fool?" "Jason Shun, who are you scheming with to commit marriage fraud?" A network of fine pain spread throughout Jason's body. He tensed his jaw, trying to break free, but was held even tighter. The sharp pain made his face turn pale, and fine beads of sweat slowly formed on his temples. In the dead silence, the heart monitor by the bed suddenly let out a shrill alarm. Jason suddenly smiled. "Want to know? Why don't you find out yourself?" "What did you just say?" She could hardly believe her ears. Jason's smile widened, his previous tenderness gone, replaced by a thick malice. "Miss Liu, you follow me around like a lovesick puppy for 10 years. You can't even handle me having an affair. I just happen to have another girlfriend. I was about to marry you. What more could you want?" The storm outside finally broke. Raindrops pelted the window pane like tiny bullets. Clara's wedding gown still had a corsage pinned to it, now trembling violently. "Jason, Clara, are you two okay?" The hospital room door was thrust open. Clara didn't turn around. Thus, she saw clearly. When that voice sounded, Jason's expression stiffened for an instant. In a flash, she remembered all the previous inconsistencies. Clara hadn't had much contact with Linda Xiao before, neither in business nor privately. It was Jason who had introduced Linda to her, and at every gathering, if Jason was present, Linda Xiao would definitely be there too. She finally released Jason's chin. After the whiteness faded, a bright red fingerprint remained. So it was her. Linda Xiao, oblivious to the atmosphere in the room, walked straight in, instinctively wanting to check on Jason. Her hand stopped midway in the air. Then, as if realizing something, she changed direction and draped her arm over Clara's shoulder. Were you so nervous about getting married that you fainted? Look how worried Clara is. She grinned, patting Clara's arm a couple of times, presenting the perfect image of a good friend. But after she spoke, no one in the room responded. Jason had kept his head down since Linda walked in, his messy hair falling over his face. Linda's fingers curled unconsciously a few times. Then she looked at Clara again, meeting a pair of deep, dark eyes. What's wrong? Her head involuntarily tilted back slightly. Clara's gaze was too oppressive. Linda felt sweat break out on her back. So it was you. In a flash, Linda Xiao leaped back, dodging an oncoming slap. She seemed genuinely confused about what was happening, still asking, Clara, are you muddled from all the stress? What was me? The room reeked of disinfectant. Jason's fingertips dug into his palm, the pain keeping him lucid. He looked at Clara's bloodshot eyes and suddenly laughed, a sharp, grating sound like shattered glass. Jason violently pulled out his foredrip. Blood droplets arced through the air, landing on the bedsheet like tiny red tears. Clara Lu, stop acting crazy here. The two women stopped their struggle, both staring at Jason on the bed. He threw off the blanket. You guessed right. The one in the photo is Linda. We're just stringing you along to marry you and get your assets. That's nothing to you, right? Your family has been rich for so many generations. Losing one of your little companies doesn't matter. Clara's slap finally landed on Jason's face. She used all her strength, her knuckles instantly swelling and turning red. So you've been using me all along? Those love letters, those photos, and you. Her bloodshot eyes turned to Linda Xiao, full of disbelief. I treated you as a friend, and this is how you treat me? Linda Xiao touched her swollen cheek, leaned against the door, and after a long silence, a smile spread across her face. She watched Clara's furious meltdown with amusement, shrugging. You can't have it all, Clara. You were stringing Ethan one along while trying to marry the man you loved. Things don't work out that perfectly. So I just graciously helped you share the burden. As she spoke, Jason from the side grabbed a water glass from the bedside table and threw it at her. You idiot. To think a fool like Ethan could like you for 8 years. The glass grazed her forehead. Blood mixed with water trickled down. His words dripped with scorn. Right, you could go find him now, can't you? See if he's even willing to look back at you. Night had fallen. The one family's villa, however, was still brightly lit. When Clara Lu kicked open Ethan Wen's bedroom door, the gust of wind stirred a plane ticket itinerary on the desk. It was for a flight from Chicago to New York. The draft on the desk confirmed a flight from Chicago to New York. Clara Lu, what kind of crazy stunt are you pulling now? Olivia Wen grabbed her arm, her face contorted with anger. She didn't understand. Her brother had already let go and left. Clara should be at the hospital with Jason Shun, not running to the one house in the middle of the night to cause a scene. Clara couldn't hear Olivia's words. Rainwater streamed down her face, pooling at her feet. She looked around the room and saw it was covered in white dust sheets, clearly uninhabited. She stared in disbelief. The layout was the same, yet everything was completely different. The closet was mostly empty. The dresser held only a solitary metal box, its lid open, revealing nothing inside. She turned dejectedly, but at the doorway, she glimpsed trash bags about to be taken out by a housekeeper. A sudden intuition struck her. Clara lunged forward, tearing open the trash bags. The contents spilled onto the floor. A movie ticket stub with a line written on the back, first date with Clara, then a torn half-page of a diary, the ink smudged by tears. Today she said my packed lunch was delicious. At the very bottom was a neatly folded chocolate wrapper, stained with dry blood. It was the one she tossed him when he was 14. The storm outside still raged. Clara grabbed her phone and frantically dialed Ethan's number. The mechanical voice finally changed. Sorry, the user you have dialed has powered off. Olivia looked at Clara, now kneeling on the floor, with an indifferent expression. Olivia, where's Ethan? When did he leave? Her voice was hoarse, so weak it felt like it would dissipate into the air at any moment. Now you decide to look for him. Olivia stepped around the crumpled papers at her feet. When he fell and scraped his knee, bringing you hangover soup in the middle of the night, you were picking out outfits with Jason Shin. We had a high fever, making you a birthday cake. You were out shopping with Jason Shin. Every word was like a poison dagger. Olivia closed her eyes. This chocolate wrapper, he treasured it for 8 years. Do you think you're worthy of touching it now? Clara's mouth opened feebly. her throat moving with difficulty, but she couldn't form a complete sentence. The wrapper in her palm suddenly felt scorching hot. The scene from the alley when she was 14 was terrifyingly clear. The boy, clutching the chocolate she'd thrown him, his school uniform stained red from his scraped knee. And now, the dark brown stain on the wrapper seared her eyes. Clara fell silent, still clutching those items. "I'm sorry." Olivia took a deep breath, desperately trying to suppress her inner fury. "Clara Lou, I don't know what set you off today, but you should be at the hospital with your husband, not going crazy in my house. This apology, you shouldn't be saying it to me, and you shouldn't be saying it now. It was too late." At least, Clara clung desperately to the closing door, rainwater mixing with sweat on the floor. "At least tell me his flight number." "Please, Olivia." Olivia shoved her away forcefully. She looked at the person slumped in the muddy water, a complete mess, her eyes as cold as ice. "Don't even dream about it. Ethan has left. In this lifetime, you will never see him again." The rain gradually subsided, and the sky began to lighten in the east. In Clara's hand was a forgotten sketch. It depicted her wiping sweat at a basketball court, the date marked in the bottom right corner. It was a few days before Ethan's 22nd birthday, and also the last time he had smiled and called her Clara. In the hospital room, Jason Shun bit his fingers anxiously. Again and again, his lips and teeth were a bloody mess, but he was oblivious. He walked barefoot to the door, watching the bodyguard stationed outside, his eyes darting around. He returned to the bed, his fingers tapping an arrhythmic beat on the bed rail. Jason had been confined here for a week. Windows and doors were sealed, and guards were posted 24 hours a day. His phone had long been confiscated, and the TV in the room had no signal. It was a complete island. The rain outside had stopped, but his mood was gloomier than the weather. Vaguely, Jason heard a nurse's voice. Clara still arranged for a nurse to check on him daily. But this wouldn't do. He couldn't stay locked up any longer. A knock on the door. "Mr. Shin, I'm coming in." Jason quickly wrapped himself in the blanket. He listened as the nurse's footsteps approached. "Mr. Shun, it's time for your medication." A soft click, the sound of a pill bottle being placed on the nightstand. Jason peeked out from under the blanket, a weak smile on his face. "Could you give me a glass of water?" The moment the nurse turned, he swiftly snatched the phone from her pocket and hid it under his pillow. His expression unchanged. He patiently waited for the nurse to finish her checks and leave. The instant the door closed, Jason dove back under the covers and dialed a familiar number. "Linda, how much longer do I have to wait?" His voice was extremely low. "Clara has had me locked up here for a week. I haven't even seen her." A light laugh came from the other end of the line. "Relax, I've prepared the financial documents. Tomorrow, someone will expose Lou Corporation for falsifying accounts. Don't worry, you'll be out soon." Jason's nails dug deeply into his palm, his tone filled with chilling hatred. "You better keep your word. Not only that, for what she did to me, I want her reputation ruined." Linda Zhao's low voice came through the receiver, interspersed with static. She chuckled softly, her words full of confidence. "With the documents you provided, isn't that a piece of cake?" After hanging up, Jason deleted the call log, turned off the phone, and hid in the gap between the nightstand and the wall. Moonlight streamed through the curtain slit, illuminating his twisted smile. The next morning, the financial world exploded. News of Lou Corporation suspected of financial fraud. Stock price plummets 20%, flooded all major social media platforms. The Lou Corporation's board of directors urgently convened a meeting, demanding Clara provide a reasonable explanation immediately. At this moment, in Lou Corporation's conference room, accusations from shareholders flew thick and fast. A hot-tempered director was the first to speak, slamming his hand on the table. "Ms. Lou, what on earth is going on?" "The key issue is no longer what caused this," Director Zhang said with a calm expression. "If this is true, Ms. Lou, we hope for an immediate public audit of the accounts." "If it's true, why bother with an audit? Clara Lou must resign and take responsibility." Clara's face was ashen as she scrolled through the leaked documents on her tablet, her fingers flying across the screen. Every page bore Lou Corp's official seal, the data shockingly detailed. Only a very few people had access to these confidential files. The arguments buzzed in her ears. Her gaze suddenly stopped on a particular page. Every page at the bottom had her signature, Clara Lou, except this one. This one was signed by Jason Shun, purportedly on her behalf. The upward flourish at the end of the last stroke was strikingly familiar. Clara had once, in her own office, painstakingly taught Jason how to sign her name. "Clara, look, do I look like you?" "Yes, very much so." At the time, she had pointed to that flourish and joked with Jason. Who would have thought he had been preparing such a grand gift for her all along? So that's how it is. Clara sneered, slamming the tablet on the table. Please give me 3 days. I, Clara Lou, guarantee here that I will give everyone a clear explanation. Meanwhile, in Olivia Wynn's office, she was watching the news about Lou Corporation. Today, Lou Corporation, suspected of financial fraud, is under investigation by the SEC. Once the news broke, Lou Corporation's stock price plummeted, hitting the limit down at market open, a drop of 20%, causing widespread market concern. She expressionlessly turned off the screen, picked up her phone, and dialed a number. Linda Xiao stood before the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of the Lou Corporation building, overlooking the myriad lights of Chicago. The news report replayed in her office. Thinking of the problems Clara Lou would face, a cold smile touched Linda's lips. Just then, a knock on the door. Her assistant entered, handing her a file. Ms. Xiao, all procedures are complete. Lou Corp's core assets have all been transferred to your name. Excellent. Linda Xiao took the pen and signed her name with a flourish. Notify the PR department. I'm holding a press conference. That afternoon, the conference hall at the Chicago Financial Center was packed with reporters. Under the flashing lights, Linda Xiao, dressed in a wine-red pantsuit, wore a perfect smile. Regarding the recent rumors circulating online, I will provide a specific clarification. She lowered her head slightly, her tone sincere. Firstly, Mr. Jason Shun and I are merely ordinary friends. What's said online are all rumors. Secondly, Lou Corporation's crisis was entirely due to the previous management's decision-making errors. Xiao Industries merely made the right choice at the opportune moment. Furthermore, before she could finish, a recording suddenly played in the hall. Once Clara Lou has nothing, she'll understand who is most suitable for her. Jason Shun's voice was frantic. I prepared all those documents. You promised me that after it's done, you'd give me everything I want. And Linda Zhao's cold laugh was clearly audible. Of course, my dear partner. The hall erupted. Linda Xiao, unfazed, pressed the remote. As you've all heard, this was entirely Mr. Jason Shun's personal doing. I have more evidence here. Meanwhile, Jason Shun was hiding in his apartment, watching the live broadcast, trembling. His phone vibrated constantly with abusive texts from unknown numbers. He dialed Linda Zhao's number with shaking fingers, only to hear a cold, automated voice. Sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service. Bastard, he screamed, then violently threw his phone against the wall. The doorbell suddenly rang. Jason, as if grasping a lifeline, rushed to open it, only to be blinded by camera flashes. Unbeknownst to him, his apartment doorway was now crowded with reporters. Mr. Shun, why did you frame Clara Lou? Is there some hidden story? What is your relationship with Linda Xiao? Did she really instigate these actions? We hear you committed marriage fraud. Do you have any explanation? Jason stumbled backward, tripping over the carpet. He looked at the flashing lights, screaming hysterically. It was all Linda Xiao. She forced me. She said it. Once Clara Lou had nothing, she would be with me forever. He grabbed anything within reach and hurled it at the reporters. Get out. All of you get out. This unhinged video quickly went viral. At that moment, Clara Lou was sitting in a police station's monitoring room, watching it all unfold, expressionless. She had leaked Jason's address to the reporters. Ms. Lou, the complete video evidence he provided is crucial. After confirming the video, the officer stood up and handed her a document. Linda Xiao is suspected of commercial fraud. We've already applied for an arrest warrant. Clara Lou nodded, her long fingers tapping lightly on the desk. Jason Shun's leaking of commercial secrets is also very clear. Subsequently, Lou Corp will formally sue him. It was late at night when she left the police station. The rain fell harder, just like the night Ethan had left. Clara Lou tilted her head back, letting the cold rain hit her face. She knew some mistakes could never be rectified, some losses could never be recovered. But at least, she would make those who had hurt him pay the price. Under the same sky, Jason Shun finally waited for the reporters to leave and ran out of his apartment building. He stood beneath Linda Zhao's apartment building, rainwater dripping from his hair, a kitchen knife in his hand glinting under the streetlight. His once meticulously manicured nails were broken, and his expensive clothes clung to him like a second skin he couldn't shed. The security guard at the entrance recognized him. After all, he had been a frequent visitor, Linda Zhao's boyfriend. The guard hesitated, then let him in. In the few seconds the elevator ascended, Jason's breathing grew increasingly rapid. He remembered Linda Zhao's cold eyes at the press conference, the way she casually distanced herself, the way he had been discarded like trash. Ding, the doors opened. Linda Zhao's apartment was brightly lit. She was sitting on the sofa, a glass of red wine in her hand. Lu Corp's equity documents spread out before her. A smile played on her lips, as if she were admiring her spoils. Linda. Jason's voice was so hoarse it didn't sound like his own. She looked up sharply. Recognizing him, her pupils contracted. How did you get in? She stood up, the red wine spilling, staining the floor. Jason laughed, tears streaming down his face. You ruined me, he said softly. You ruined me, and I'm going to ruin you. Come to hell with me. When Linda Zhao saw what he was holding, her face changed instantly. Are you crazy? Don't you forget I'm pregnant with your child. She backed away, reaching for her phone. Security? Security. Jason didn't give her a chance. He lunged, the knife slicing through the air. Linda Zhao dodged clumsily, but her shoulder was still gashed. She cried out in pain, knocking over the coffee table, documents scattering. You psycho, she roared. Jason ignored her. He bent down, grabbed the equity documents, and laughed like a madman. You wanted Lu Corp, didn't you? He fumbled for a lighter. I'll make sure you never get it. Flame shot up, instantly consuming the paper. The fire licked at the expensive leather sofa, thick smoke billowing. Linda Zhao's face completely changed. You. She rushed to snatch back the documents, but was blocked by Jason's knife. Call the police. Call the police now, she shrieked toward the door. Jason stood in the firelight, smiling like a victor. Too late, he whispered. You're finished. Police sirens wailed in the distance, followed by the roar of fire trucks. Linda Zhao stared at him, then suddenly sneered. Madman, she gritted out. You stupid fool. You deserve to be played to death by Clara Lu. Jason's smile froze. The next second, police burst in. He was pinned to the ground, the firelight illuminating his face like a grotesque curtain call. Linda Zhao stood aside, shoulder bleeding, eyes venomous, watching everything she had schemed for turn to ash. Ethan, did you see the news? Olivia's voice softened the moment the call connected. Clara Lu and Jason Sean. They're really finished this time. Ethan's calm voice came from the other end. Liv, I don't care anymore. The coursework here is really intense. I probably won't be able to come back to see you anytime soon. Olivia sighed, rose, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the distant skyscrapers. That's good too. Being away from all this trouble is a good thing. By the way, how are you and Chloe Xiong getting along? The siblings tacitly skipped over the serious topic, and Olivia changed the subject. She's great. Last week she even took me to an art exhibition. Ethan's voice couldn't help but relax, finally carrying a hint of a smile. That's good. Chloe is a good person in all aspects. But you don't have to force yourself. I know, Liv. Don't worry. Ethan's words were interrupted. Olivia heard an unfamiliar voice. Soon, Ethan's voice came through again. Gotta go, Liv. Class is starting. Talk to you later. After hanging up, Olivia stared at the photo of her and Ethan on her phone's wallpaper for a long time. Ethan's cheerful voice seemed to still echo in her ears. She lowered her eyes, her fingers touching the cold glass in front of her, the icy sensation reminding her of the equally chilling tears on her brother's face. She finally made a decision and dialed another number. Hello, this is Olivia Wen. Regarding Lu Corporation's financial issues, I have some information I can provide. You might be very interested. At a bar, Clara Lu downed glass after glass of hard liquor. Her former friends now avoided her like the plague, not even answering her calls. Friends. She thought of Linda Zhao and let out a bitter laugh. She was such an idiot, played like a fiddle by them. Ms. Lu, you can't drink anymore, the bartender cautioned. Clara ignored him, and despite his attempts to stop her, opened another bottle of whiskey. The liquid flowed slowly, the cold alcohol burning her throat, but failing to extinguish the remorse in her heart. Just then, Clara's phone vibrated. She looked at it with bleary eyes. It was a message from the company lawyer. Feedback received, Mr. Shen has confessed to maliciously leaking company secrets. However, he claims he was instigated by Linda Zhao and was only responsible for carrying out tasks, not the mastermind. The police have already intervened in this matter. Clara sneered and tossed her phone aside. The true love, the white moonlight she once believed in, was nothing but a complete fraud. Leaving a table full of empty bottles, she staggered back to her apartment. She stood dumbly in the empty living room. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, fumbled in a storage room by moonlight for a dust-covered metal box. It was the one Ethan had left, filled entirely with memories related to her. Clara hadn't left that night. She waited outside the villa and, while the housekeeper was cleaning the living room, retrieved all those items. She collapsed beside the sofa, opening the box, her hand trembling from excessive alcohol consumption. A yellowed photograph slipped out. 14-year-old Ethan stood by a basketball court, holding a lunchbox, smiling shyly and brightly. Clara's fingertips brushed over the photo. She suddenly remembered how he had blushed but still firmly said, "I'll grow up," when she teased him that day. The hazy moonlight shone into the room, memories flooding back like a tide. The scarf he had stayed up several nights to knit for her, the umbrella he always brought her on rainy days, and the way he would stay by her bedside every time she was sick. "Ethan," she choked, curling up, clutching the small metal box tightly to her chest. Tears she had held back for so long finally burst forth. Clara sobbed uncontrollably. Just then, urgent knocking came from outside, startling her from her grief. Clara wiped her face, stumbled up, and opened the door to find her former friends. "Clara, we know everything," the lead girl said gravely, "about Jason Shun and Linda Shout teaming up to cheat you, and how they deceived you for so many years." Another person stepped forward, handing over a phone. "And look at this first." The screen showed a surveillance video, clearly recording Jason Shun and Linda Shao meeting secretly at a hotel. The timestamp in the top left corner showed the meeting occurred before Jason had agreed to fake a relationship with her. This video further corroborated Jason and Linda's premeditated scheme and made Clara realize her own foolishness even more acutely. "We were wrong about Ethan," someone whispered. "He was the one who truly cared about you." How ridiculous. They only understood this now. Clara felt as if her chest had been struck by a heavy hammer, the pain making it hard to breathe. She turned, grabbed her car keys, and rushed out the door, ignoring everyone's attempts to stop her. "I have to find him. I must apologize to him in person." An overwhelming sense of guilt almost drowned her, but she remembered Ethan had already gone abroad. For a moment, Clara gripped the steering wheel, not knowing where to go. When she finally reached the Wynn Villa, only a locked gate and an empty house greeted her. Olivia stood coldly at the door. "What are you doing here again?" Clara knelt before the gate, rainwater mixing with tears. "Olivia, tell me where he is. Please." Olivia shook her head, her eyes full of disappointment. "It's too late, Clara. You threw away the person who loved you most for a liar." New York winters arrive hard and fast. Ethan gently exhaled, fogging a small patch on a glass window. He idly traced lines with his finger. The table beside him was piled high with sketches. The mist gradually cleared. He turned back to stare at the incomplete butterfly on a design sketch, a charcoal pencil twirling in his fingers, finally drawing a heavy, long crack across it. "1. Your broken butterfly wings collection. Chanel pre-ordered all the sample pieces." Ethan's mentor, Sophia, hair disheveled by the wind, burst into the studio with champagne, but froze upon seeing the floor littered with crumpled sketches. "This is something to celebrate. You should be in the spotlight, or at a lively party, not holed up in here like a snail." Sophia put down the champagne and carefully stepped over the paper balls. Ethan seemed not to hear. He bent down and picked up a sketch stained with coffee, gold dust flaking off the butterfly wing. "Not enough. Pain," he murmured, his nails unconsciously digging into his palm, where a faint brown mark, an old scar, remained. A butterfly that truly breaks its cocoon should emerge with blood. Ethan wore long sleeves and pants, even in the warm room. Only his neck was exposed. The glass curtain wall reflected a new butterfly tattoo behind his ear, its broken wing perfectly covering the scar from the falling chandelier years ago. "Oh, Engel, you're here. Wonderful. I simply can't get one to look away from his work. Outside of class, he doesn't listen to me at all." "I know, Professor Sophia." The flamboyant woman clutched her chest, and after a dramatic pronouncement, confidently entrusted her student to Engel. "Eat something. A designer collapsing from hunger at his workbench isn't a headline we want." Ethan finally deigned to lift his gaze from his sketches. Chloe Xiong, or Engel, as Sophia called her, leaned against the doorframe, holding 2 paper cups in one hand and an insulated bag in the other. Her cuffs were still smudged with glue from an architectural model. Ethan, however, smelled food. She pulled out one insulated container after another from the bag. Shrimp and eggs, cola chicken wings. All his favorite dishes. Watching her seriously arrange the food, Ethan remembered the first time he met Chloe Xiong. When he had just arrived in New York, when Chloe first appeared at his apartment door, Ethan had almost instinctively tensed up. "Mister, I'm Chloe Xiong, or you can call me Engel. Your sister asked me to look after you. For our first meeting, I brought a few things for you." The girl stood in the snow, a beige coat flattering her figure, holding a craft paper bag from which the edges of a few books peeked out. He hadn't taken it, just said coolly, "Thanks, but I don't need it. Books or care." Ethan could understand his sister's worry, but he had no energy for new acquaintances. "I can take care of myself. You don't need to bother, and I won't tell my sister." Chloe wasn't annoyed by Ethan's dismissive attitude. Instead, she smiled. "Your sister said you like Eileen Chong. This is a Hong Kong edition of Half a Lifelong Romance. You can't buy in the States." Ethan's fingers curled slightly. He certainly remembered how much he once loved that book, even copying sentences from it in his diary. "Shijun, we can't go back." Back then, he naively thought his story with Clara Liu would naturally be different. But where in the world were there so many naturalies? "No, I don't read it anymore," he heard himself say, his voice so low it was almost drowned out by the wind and snow. "The person I am now. I don't deserve such good things." Chloe didn't move, just watched him quietly. Her eyes were very dark, but unlike Clara's condescending scrutiny, they were like a calm, gentle deep sea, capable of embracing all turbulent undercurrents. "Books aren't about deserving, only about wanting to read," she said softly, then leaned forward slightly, placed the paper bag on the shoe cabinet by the door, and stepped back. "If you change your mind, I live in the next building." Her figure disappeared down the hallway. After a long moment, Ethan closed the door, leaning weakly against it, breathing deeply. He thought he would cry, but when he touched his cheeks, they were dry. He wanted to shed tears, but his eyes only felt painfully dry. Later, Chloe didn't deliberately approach him. Ethan thought the matter had ended there, but he began to occasionally run into her at the library or coincidentally receive a cup of his usual black coffee. And one late night, when Ethan was working in his studio until dawn, his vision blackening from low blood sugar, a cup of warm, sweet-smelling milk was pushed in front of him. "Eat something." Chloe's voice came from above. Ethan looked up astonished. "How did you?" "Heard someone needed a free laborer, so I came." She handed him a glass of milk. "Don't worry, my hands are steady when dismantling models." He sipped the milk, hearing the rustle of paper, and couldn't help but look up. He saw her holding his design sketches, her gaze as focused as if she were admiring a magnificent building. "Here." She pointed to the pleated lines of a skirt. "If this were changed to an asymmetrical curve cut, wouldn't it look more like the moment a butterfly unfurls its wings?" Ethan froze. This was the first time someone had seen through the hidden metaphor in his broken butterfly wings. Those fractured lines, those deliberately imperfect elements, were his unspeakable pain. "Do you know why I chose butterflies?" Ethan suddenly asked. Chloe put down the sketch, her gaze falling on the tattoo behind his ear. "Because only after experiencing the pain of breaking the cocoon can a butterfly spread its wings and fly. Right?" Ethan's hand holding the pencil trembled slightly. 8 years of love had amounted to nothing but a joke. He thought he would be forever trapped in that dark, rainy night, trapped in the moment Clara chose to save Jason Shun and abandon him. "If you need me," Chloe said suddenly, "next week is Fashion Week. If your collection needs structural support from architectural elements, I can offer suggestions." She didn't expect Ethan's reply, didn't even look at him. She just sat there quietly, leaving the choice entirely up to him. Ethan's eyes flickered. Chloe's voice was soft, yet it was like a key, unlocking his tightly shut heart. But she merely stood at the door, patiently waiting for his invitation. The cold wind outside showed no signs of stopping. The once cold and desolate studio was now filled with the sweet aroma of milk. For the next week, Ethan prepared for Fashion Week. Daylight came and went. He yawned again. This was his third all-night. The closer it got to the show, the more dissatisfied Ethan became with his designs. The pile of crumpled paper at his feet was almost ankle-deep, and his body was screaming in protest. But this part still isn't right. Vaguely, Ethan heard a soft tap-tap. Turning, he saw Chloe standing by the door. When she saw him look over, she gave a little wave. He walked into her studio, looking around. Chloe's studio always had a scent of pine wood and pencil shavings. Drawings were spread across a long table, messy yet organized, impressively dominating the center of the room. Ethan couldn't help but tread lightly. Surrounded by countless intricate miniature models, he felt as if he'd stumbled into a land of Lilliputians. Suddenly, his gaze was drawn to a miniature glass conservatory by the window. The curve of its dome was strikingly similar to the butterfly wing curve in his designs. Sunlight streamed through the glass, casting fragmented light patterns on the floor, like wings about to take flight. "This is..." Ethan stared, mesmerized, his voice unconsciously softening. Chloe's footsteps stopped behind him, bringing a faint scent of pine. "It's a project for a client in Switzerland." Unseen by Ethan, Chloe subconsciously touched her earlobe. "But if you like it, You can use it for your show. A sketch suddenly appeared before him. Ethan stared, then reached out and took it. Dust motes danced lightly on the paper, lines seeming to grow freely, the dome gradually transforming into unfurled butterfly wings, vines twining around the glass seams. He saw his design's soul reinterpreted in another artistic language. Isn't this too wasteful? Ethan shook his head, wanting to put the sketch back on the table. This must be a very important bid project, right? Chloe just smiled, folded the sketch, and tucked it back into Ethan's hand. The next day, the door was knocked again. Ethan, with an anticipation he hadn't even realized, looked up sharply. Chloe walked in, snowflakes still clinging to her hair, a model cradled in her arms. The conservatory dome had transformed into an asymmetrical butterfly wing shape, each pane of glass etched with different butterfly patterns, refracting a rainbow of colors in the light. Most striking was the clumsily tied ribbon bow on the base, like an awkwardly perched butterfly. Ethan noticed the band-aid on her fingertip. First time tying this kind of bow. Her ears turned a faint pink, her voice so gentle it almost melted into the night. Pardon my clumsiness. Warm light filled the room. Looking at her earlobe, Ethan, on impulse, asked, "Why are you so good to me? Is it because my sister asked you to?" Chloe was silent for a long time before finally saying softly, "Your sister did ask me to take care of you." In the silence of the room, heartbeats thudded loudly, one after another. Her fingers brushed the model, her voice clear and bright. "But I won't deny, I have my own reasons." Clara Lou stood on Fifth Avenue in New York, tiny snowflakes landing on her shoulders, quickly melting. She looked up at the giant Fashion Week billboard nearby. Ethan Wynn's name was prominently displayed. Things back home were still unresolved. Questions from her parents, pressure from a board, her lover's betrayal, her rival's mockery. Clara had tasted a coldness and disregard she'd never known. She sold some personal assets, handed her company over to a professional manager, threw everything to the wind, and flew to New York alone. "But, ma'am, you need an invitation for the show." A security guard blocked her path. Clara's fingers trembled. She had no invitation. She wanted to say she knew Ethan won, that she was here to see him. But when she opened her mouth, the words caught in her throat. Who was she? And what was she to Ethan Wynn? Clara pondered her identity and found the only thing she could say was that she was the jerk who had hurt him deeply. Her shoulders slumped. Through the glass, she saw the brightly lit interior of the venue. Ethan, wearing a long black ensemble that looked more like a flowing tunic or an avant-garde piece than a dress, was talking with a tall, striking Asian woman. Clara saw the smile on his face, bright and genuine, a smile she hadn't seen in 8 years. She saw the woman lean in, whispering something in his ear, her fingers gently brushing the butterfly tattoo behind his ear. Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, making her touch seem more natural. Clara's heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. She had once possessed all of this young man's love, yet she had crushed it with her own hands. Now, she could only stand in the wind and snow, watching through a pane of glass as he smiled at someone else. "Clara Lou." A familiar voice came from behind. Clara turned to see Olivia when standing nearby, frowning. "What are you doing here?" Olivia's voice was icy. "Ethan has finally started a new life. Are you here to bother him again?" Clara's throat tightened. "I just wanted to see him." "See him?" Olivia sneered, unconsciously clenching her fists. "When he was lying in the hospital, why didn't you say you wanted to see him? When the chandelier hit him, why didn't you go save him?" Every accusation was like a knife twisting in Clara's heart. She wanted to explain, but all words felt pale and powerless. Yes, she had chosen Jason Shun, time and time again. Even later, when she knew it was all a scam, when she knew Ethan was the one who truly cared for her. But it was all too late. "I was wrong." Clara's voice was hoarse. "Olivia, I really know I was wrong. Can you give me a chance? Let me apologize to him in person." Olivia shook her head. "It's too late, Clara Lou. Your remorse has come too late." She looked back at Ethan, who was laughing and talking, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and pride. "Do you know how he got that tattoo behind his ear? It's to cover the scar from the chandelier. Do you know why he designed the Broken Butterfly Wings collection? Because he said, only a butterfly that has been broken can truly understand the weight of flying." Clara lowered her head, Olivia's words piercing her heart. An image of 14-year-old Ethan flashed before her eyes. Back then, he stood by the basketball court holding a lunchbox, his cheeks flushed with shyness. Back then, his eyes were full of adoration and love for her. "I'll wait," Clara said in a low, raspy voice. "I'll wait until he's willing to see me." Olivia looked at the stubborn person before her, and sighed. Suit yourself. But one thing, don't appear in front of him. Chloe is wonderful. She can give Ethan what you never could, respect and equality. With that, Olivia turned away from her former friend and walked into the venue. Through the glass, Clara saw her approach Ethan, affectionately ruffling his hair, and that Chloe Seong stood beside them, the three of them talking happily, like a family. Snowflakes landed on Clara's eyelashes, melting into water like tears. She finally understood. Some people, once lost, can never be found again. On the final day of Fashion Week, Ethan Wynn's Broken Butterfly Wings collection closed the show. On the runway, models and his designs moved to the beat of the music. Black chiffon flowed like shattered butterfly wings, adorned with crystals and pearls that shimmered under the lights. The deliberate asymmetrical cuts, the fractured yet reassembled lines, told a story of pain and rebirth. Backstage, Ethan nervously bit his lip, intently watching the audience's reaction. Chloe Seong stood beside him, her fingers lightly tapping his, then gently taking his hand. Look, she pointed to the end of the runway. That's your work, your story. When the final gown appeared, the entire hall fell silent. It was a pure white wedding dress, its skirt embroidered with countless butterflies. Starting from the hem, the butterflies gradually became whole, culminating at the bodice with a golden, winged phoenix butterfly about to take flight. This is... Chloe's hand paused. Emergence, Ethan said softly. Sophia found me. She told me about the idea you mentioned before. I added it to my collection. I think it's the perfect finishing touch. A light laugh reached his ears. I must say, it's my honor. Ethan turned to her, noticing Chloe's exceptionally gentle gaze. You deserve a fresh start, Ethan. Chloe squeezed his hand slightly, her tone even more earnest. Not as someone's shadow, not as the one who was abandoned, but just as yourself. As a brilliantly talented designer, you have to believe in yourself. You are someone worthy of being loved wholeheartedly. Just as she finished speaking, the show ended. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. During the curtain call, Ethan slowly walked onto the runway. The lights were blinding. He squinted and saw his sister and Chloe in the front row, clapping enthusiastically, their faces beaming with pride. At this moment, all the applause and praise in the venue were for him alone. In a daze, he thought he saw a familiar figure standing in the shadows at the very back. It was Clara. She stood there quietly, motionless, just looking at him, her expression complex. Ethan averted his gaze. Then he bowed deeply to the audience. In that instant, he felt the butterfly tattoo behind his ear grow slightly warm, as if it had truly been reborn. At the after-party, Chloe found Ethan standing alone on the terrace. The New York night sky was unusually clear, dotted with stars. What are you thinking about? She approached, handing him a glass of champagne. Ethan shook his head. It just feels incredible. A year ago, I was still trapped in that rainy night, trapped in a love that would never be reciprocated. Now my work is on the international stage. That's life. Chloe leaned back against the railing. Some wounds seem impossible to heal, but it's precisely those cracks that let the light in. She paused, then took a small velvet box from her pocket. Ethan, please don't misunderstand, she said with a smile. This is just an invitation. Next month, I have a project in Switzerland, and I'd like to invite you to come along. It has the most beautiful butterfly valley in the world. I think you'd like it. Ethan looked at the butterfly-shaped brooch in a box. Its silver wings were inlaid with tiny blue sapphires, glittering in the starlight. Okay, he heard himself say. Receiving his affirmative answer, Chloe let out an almost inaudible sigh of relief. She then pinned the brooch to his collar and gently hugged him. Ethan closed his eyes, inhaling her faint scent of pine, feeling secure and grounded. Back in Chicago, however, it was a bloodbath. Jason Shun stood wretchedly beneath the Lou Corporation building, rain streaming down his face, mixed with tears of unwillingness. He had just been thrown out by security, losing even his last job. His phone vibrated incessantly with abusive texts from unknown numbers. You scumbag. Seducing Linda Xiao to frame the Lou family. Now you're getting what you deserve, huh? He shakily clicked on the trending topics. The overwhelming news headlines stung his eyes. Breaking. Video of Jason Shun and Linda Xiao's secret hotel meeting leaked. Former Lou Corp CEO cheated on for years. Jason Shun's marriage fraud colluded with Linda Xiao to steal Lou Corp's commercial secrets. In the video, he and Linda Xiao were clearly visible kissing in a hotel corridor. His voice could even be heard. Once Clara Lou marries me, the entire Lou family will be ours. Jason violently shut off his phone, his nails digging deep into his palm. Clara Lou, you're ruthless. He should have known. With Clara's methods, she would never let him off easily. But he hadn't expected her to use this most humiliating way to destroy his reputation. He dialed Linda Zhao's number, only to hear the cold, automated voice. Sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service. Linda Zhao was also unreachable. He was completely abandoned. Meanwhile, at the Liu family's old mansion, Clara stood outside her father's study, listening to the sound of porcelain shattering from within and her father's hysterical roars. You ungrateful child. You're going to destroy the entire Liu family for a woman. She pushed open the door, expressionless, and saw her father clutching his chest, his face deathly pale as he collapsed into a chair. Dad, you still have the nerve to call me Dad. Mister. Liu violently grabbed a newspaper from the table and threw it at her. Look at this. Open your eyes and take a good look. Now all of Chicago is laughing at our Liu family. That bastard Jason Shin caused our stock to plummet, and you still don't think it's embarrassing enough? You had to make things even bigger. Clara merely sneered. That's because he deserved it. Deserved it, mister. Liu shot up, his finger trembling as he pointed at her. Then what about you? Don't you deserve it? Ethan gave you his heart and soul for 8 years. What did you treat him as? Clara's pupils contracted sharply. And you even ran off to New York to find him. You regret it now? It's too late. You think the one family will still give you a chance? Olivia already made it clear. If you dare appear in front of Ethan, she'll make sure you can't survive in Chicago. Before he could finish, Mr. Liu's face suddenly changed. He clutched his chest in agony. Before Clara could react, he had collapsed heavily to the floor. Dad! Dad! The wail of ambulance sirens pierced the night sky. But everything happened too quickly. Mr. Liu was diagnosed with a sudden heart attack on the way to the hospital and was confirmed dead after resuscitation efforts failed. The pillar of the Liu family had fallen. A month later, in a rundown neighborhood of Chicago, Clara curled up in a dilapidated rented room, watching the news constantly popping up on her phone. Liu Corporation officially changes hands. Zhao Capital takes over. Former Chicago socialite, now destitute on the streets. Liu family assets carved up. She expressionlessly turned off the screen, reaching to touch her swollen left leg. A gruesome wound was there, a souvenir from getting jumped by some thugs the night before. Well, if it isn't Miss Liu. Back then, for Jason Shun, you even dared to bully young Master Wen. Now look at you, groveling like a dog. Clara recognized them. They were the thugs she'd had someone teach a lesson to when Ethan was cornered in the alley years ago. Payback was swift. She cursed under her breath, struggled to her feet, and dragged her injured leg out the door. She had to go to New York. She had to see him one last time. Outside Ethan Wen's studio, snow fell heavily. Clara stood across the street, watching the familiar figure through the glass window. He was thinner than before, the butterfly tattoo behind his ear faintly visible under the lights. He was bent over a design sketch, occasionally looking up to chat and laugh with the woman beside him. It was Chloe Seong, the good friend Olivia had praised to the skies. Clara's heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. She had once possessed all his love, only to crush it herself. The snow in New York fell heavily. Ethan tightened his coat, head down, hurrying across the street, his exhaled breath condensing and dissipating in the air. He had just left the studio, still holding a few design sketches, his fingertips red with cold. Suddenly, a familiar figure blocked his path. He stopped abruptly and looked up. It was Clara Liu. She looked more haggard than the last time he'd seen her, her eyes bloodshot, her brown coat soaked with snow. She looked like a ghost crawled out of hell. Ethan. Her voice was hoarse, as if she hadn't spoken in a long time. Ethan's fingers unconsciously tightened, the papers crinkling in his palm. Moo! His voice was colder than the swirling snow around them. Clara didn't move, just stared at him, her gaze filled with a possessive longing, as if trying to etch him into her very bones. I was wrong, she said. Ethan was silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed, his eyes turning red. Clara Liu, do you think that just because you say I was wrong, I should forgive you? His voice was so soft, it was almost lost in the wind and snow. Do you think I'll still be like before, foolishly standing there, waiting for you to come back? Clara's throat moved. She reached out to touch him, but her hand froze mid-air at his words. I just wanted to see you. Seen enough now? Ethan stepped back, creating distance between them. Then you can go. He walked around her, striding forward, but as they passed, Clara suddenly grabbed his wrist. Let go. Ethan frowned, using all his strength to break free. Ethan, Clara's voice trembled. I have nothing now. Ethan stopped, turned to look at her, his eyes as unfamiliar as if looking at a stranger. "So," he asked softly, "now that you have nothing, you remembered me and came looking for me?" Clara's pupils constricted violently. "No, Clara Lou." He cut her off, speaking each word clearly. "Your current situation is what you deserve. You brought this on yourself." He flung her hand away and walked into the blizzard without looking back. Clara stood rooted to the spot, snow blanketing her shoulders. She suddenly remembered many years ago, the Ethan one who stood at the alley entrance, his eyes red, waiting for her to turn back. The snow fell harder. Ethan crunched through the snow, hurrying, fine ice crystals clinging to his eyelashes. He heard footsteps behind him. Clara was still following him. Just as he was about to turn and scold her, a figure emerged from around the corner, a beige coat billowing in the wind. It was Chloe Xiong. She held a black umbrella, her gaze softening as it fell on Ethan's reddened nose, then instantly icing over when she saw the figure trailing behind him. "Ethan!" She quickened her pace, tilting the umbrella to shield him from the wind and snow. Her eyes swept over his already white-knuckled fingers, and without a word, she took the design sketches from his arms. "Why did you come out without gloves?" Ethan visibly relaxed, his tense body easing. He moved a little closer to her. "I forgot." Clara stopped a few meters away. The two women's gazes clashed in midair. "And this is—" Chloe's tone was calm, but she subtly guided Ethan half a step behind her. "Someone unimportant," Ethan said, adjusting his scarf. His voice was muffled by the cashmere, but everyone present heard him clearly. Clara's jaw tightened. She recognized that look, the warning gaze one gets when their territory is invaded. Clara had once used that look to drive away everyone who tried to pursue Ethan. Now, with the roles reversed, she tasted the bitter, unwilling flavor of it herself. "Ms. Lou," Chloe suddenly spoke, her voice like chipped ice. "New York isn't very safe. I'd advise you not to be out late at night, to avoid any accidents." Snowflakes landed lightly on Clara's shoulder, yet they felt as heavy as lead, weighing her down. She stared at Chloe's hand resting on Ethan's back. "We've known each other for 8 years. So," Chloe chuckled, her fingertips tracing the edge of the design sketch she'd just taken from Ethan, her tone laced with sarcasm. "So knowing each other for 8 years gives you the right to harass him on the street?" Ethan suddenly looked up. He had never seen her like this. Her usually smiling eyes were now as cold as Arctic glaciers, her voice firm and commanding. Clara took a step forward, the snow crunching under her feet. "This is between him and me." "Not anymore." Chloe and the woman opposite her both shifted, completely shielding Ethan, the black umbrella drawing a clear boundary in the snow. "If you take one more step, I'll have the police escort you to the station for a cup of coffee." She paused. "I hear you just lost Lou Corporation? Then I imagine you wouldn't want to get into any more legal trouble." That sentence stabbed into Clara's heart like a knife. She looked at Ethan, only to see him gently tugging Chloe's sleeve. "Let's go, it's so cold." Chloe immediately turned, the wind carrying her final warning to Clara's ears. "Don't let me see you near him again." Their figures gradually disappeared into the snowstorm. Clara stood there, watching Ethan's hair brush against Chloe's shoulder, watching the Ethan who once only smiled for her, now looking up at someone else and saying, "Tilt the umbrella more your way." Snow slipped into her collar, taking with it the last shred of warmth from her heart. Later, no one in Chicago ever saw Clara Lou again. Some said she went to South America. Others said she died on some snowy night. And Ethan Wynn's Broken Butterfly Wings collection appeared at Paris Fashion Week at the end of the year. He became the most talked-about designer of the year. At the curtain call, he knelt on one knee backstage and placed a butterfly diamond ring on Chloe Xiong's finger. He had finally broken free from his cocoon, flying towards his own sky. And some people were destined to be just as snowstorm as life. Paris, a private art exhibition gala. Ethan Wynn stood on the terrace, the starry sky spread above him, the butterfly tattoo on his collarbone glinting subtly in the light. 5 years. His personal brand had gone from New York to the world, each season's show like a grand farewell ceremony. Farewell to the once humble self who had debased himself for love. Farewell to those squandered years. Footsteps approached from behind. Chloe Xiong came over, draping a coat over his shoulders. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her fingers lightly brushing the butterfly on his collarbone. Ethan shook his head, a slight smile on his lips. "Just thinking. Fate is a strange thing. If he hadn't chosen to go to New York back then, but to some other country, some other city, if he hadn't met Chloe, he might have been forever trapped in the memory of that rainy night, trapped by the image of Clara choosing Jason Shun. Chloe didn't press him on his musings, just gently took his hand. It's time for the curtain call. At the end of the runway, Ethan stood alone, a white ensemble as light as butterfly wings. The applause was thunderous, camera flashes like a galaxy of stars. He looked up at the night sky. The camera zoomed in on the butterfly on his collarbone, the tattoo covering his scar, the mark of his rebirth. He had finally flown through that storm. Late autumn in Paris. Fallen leaves carpeted the paths of Montmartre. Ethan stood before the floor-to-ceiling window of his studio, fingertips gently tracing the butterfly tattoo on his collarbone. Sunlight streamed through the glass, refracting off his diamond wedding ring, creating tiny light spots that danced like stardust on his manuscript. Mr. One, this is a delayed letter, Ms. Lou sent before she passed away. It just arrived today. The name hadn't been mentioned in front of him for a long time. He silently took the envelope and walked alone to the balcony. Inside was a stack of photographs. 18-year-old him, secretly watching her at the basketball court. 20-year-old him, staying up all night to knit her a scarf, his fingers pricked red by the needle. On his 22nd birthday, wearing a white outfit, standing at the club entrance, his eyes full of anticipation. The last photo was of his back during the curtain call at New York Fashion Week. On the back of the photo was a single line of writing, "If I could do it all over again, I would fall in love with you first." Ethan looked at the photos quietly, then suddenly smiled. Too late. He folded the letter into a paper airplane and tossed it out the window. What are you looking at? Warmth enveloped him from behind. Chloe's chin rested on top of his head. She held blueprints just arrived from Switzerland. The model of the butterfly observatory gleamed in the sunlight. Thinking about going to London tomorrow to receive an award. He turned, the tattoo behind his ear brushing her lips. Do you think my acceptance speech should mention the inspiration for broken butterfly wings? Chloe smiled, kissing the diamond ring on his finger. Of course. Mention how you turned scars into wings. Cheers suddenly erupted from the square below. They looked out the window. Children were running into the newly completed Butterfly Museum, its glass dome breaking the sunlight into a cascade of rainbow colors, pouring onto everyone's shoulders. In the midst of thousands of fluttering wings of light, he clearly saw his 14-year-old self. The boy standing at the alley entrance, clutching a chocolate bar, his knees scabbed over, was looking across the long years, smiling at the man he had become.